Our fear of our own mortality is the cancer in our Western society. We never grow if we aim for comfort. That's not how nature works. Friction is a good thing. That's where growth happens. That's where life is. Thoughts and attachments cause all the suffering. The moment you release everything and let go and are willing to lose everything that we have, you liberate yourself.
Welcome back to Live Into Your Brilliance, the place where we go on deep explorations to find those experiments and the insights that wake us up to the truth of who we are and allow us to live the lives that we truly love. Myself and Billows are joined again by our friend and guest, BE Alink. B came on, I think it's probably about 2 months ago now, maybe slightly longer. And we had one of the most spectacular conversations that we've had on this podcast. And we just knew that we had to have you back. And we're actually delighted, both myself and Billows, that it's happened so quickly. And so I kind of, I should say hello to Billows first. I'm like so keen to get into this, Billows, that I haven't even said, hello, my brother.
It's
so
fine.
Hello, my brother.
I don't think I should be given any airtime. I think we should jump straight in because I think B's got something special to share.
Yeah, no, I just can't wait to get into this. And for the listener, if you listen to the last episode, as I said, we went broad and had a big conversation. And today, we've decided that we're going to go narrow and we're going to go deep. And I don't really know exactly where that's going to lead us, but I'm excited to find out. So B, welcome back, first of all. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And
I'm excited to be here again. It was a fantastic conversation last time, and just the spaciousness of it, and I just really enjoyed it. So I'm very happy to be back and to go deep this time.
Yeah. Well, look, you've already kind of clued myself and Billows into the topic that you would like to discuss today. But why don't you share that with our viewers and listeners to kind of what's the direction you're taking us on today's exploration?
Well, when I thought about that, I was like, if there's something that we need to go deep on, it is also broad. It touches on everything because it's the root cause, I think, of everything. And you can go with this subject, you can go anywhere, and it is deep at the same time. The subject that I think would be interesting to explore is our mortality and fear of our mortality, because I do think that our fear of our own mortality is the cancer in our Western society, just to say it like that.
Just that. That's it. Just drop that one in. That's all.
Yeah. The fear of our own mortality is the cancer of our Western society.
Well, tell us what you mean by that. Yeah, because that's a big statement. So what makes that true?
I was confronted with our mortality when I was 8, when my father died. And I was like, oh shit, people die. And also when they're not old, because, as a kid, you think like grandparents and then grandparents die and, but I was like, oh, when they're young, they can also, we die apparently at certain times. And I became fascinated by death. And I remember writing a poem when I was 9. So a bit just after my dad died. And I can't remember the rest of the poem, but the last sentence was, your death taught me how to live. And when I saw all the reactions of people to, disappearing after my father's death, because they were uncomfortable with the situation with such a dramatic loss, that they chose their own comfort over showing up for us. And so I think, and then throughout my life, I've always been the go-to person. I became the go-to person if people were faced with loss, because I don't mind talking about death. I think it's very alive to talk about death. It's very alive to see ourselves in a cyclical way, that death is part of life. Like if you don't die, you don't live. And this is what I mean with the cancer in our Western society. We've separated ourselves from nature, from a cyclical process. And then we are afraid of death. So we prolong life as we are not really living. We're just prolonging life for the heck of it because we forgot to live or something.
Well, do you think, like, so it's interesting. I was just thinking about that nature conversation you just said there. So I would imagine you know how the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly. And I didn't know this until like about a year or so ago. But as the caterpillar is transforming and it's turning into soup, these things called imaginal cells appear out of nowhere, which holds the kind of the idea of the butterfly. And the very last act of the caterpillar is to try and kill the imaginal cells, essentially. And it makes me wonder, like, I wonder how much of nature also resists death. Just as you said, we're afraid of death, and I was like, it's an interesting. I'm kind of been a little bit contrarian because I thought, is it what's going on there? Like, what is it that when you say it's the cancer of society, or fear of death is the cancer of society? I'm just curious, and it makes because it can easily seem like, oh, but nature just accepts death and life, and I wonder, does nature accept death and life, or does part of nature is it part of our nature? Is it part of nature sometimes to resist the inevitable transformations from
But
life to
isn't
death
where
to life to death?
friction is, where resistance is, where friction is, isn't that where the juice happens? If you go for comfort and everything accepting and whatever, there's no friction, there's no growth. So of course there's resistance to the next phase. But that is where the juice is, where the grinding happens, I think. So it's not to celebrate and completely accept death as an easy thing. It's more like being aware of who we are in a process. And then you run up against like, oh, this is uncomfortable. But instead of going for the comfort and the familiar, you go for what's not comfortable because that is where the growth is. We
Mm,
never grow if we aim for comfort. This is what I mean with the cancer of the Western society. We've been taught to go for comfort and have the right to comfort. So we go for comfort food that makes us sick, and then we want to hold up the hand like, I just want a cure for whatever disease. That's not how nature works. There is friction. There's, you know, and so yeah, it's not, friction is a good thing, and resistance and that sort of like, that butterfly has to, work itself out of its case. I think the friction and yeah, maybe resistance is where the juice happens. That's where growth happens. That's where life is. That's where, permaculture, for example, it's where two different ecosystems meet. That is where all the stuff happens in the sort of the fringes of society. That's where art and culture is born and growing and expanding. It's not in the comfort zone and where everything is regulated. It's in the fringes of society where the juice happens.
mm.
I love resistance. I love friction, discomfort. And you can only love it if you've learned that you come out better than you go in. And that's a muscle that you can build. So if in how we are trained in our Western society is to go for comfort. But losing your dad when you're 8 was not very comfortable. So I had this big experience when I was very young of there's friction. People disappear. We're all of a sudden like we're the first incomplete family. Who am I in this world? And there's friction because now the world doesn't work for me anymore as it used to work, because all of a sudden the whole situation is different. So you got to work with it. And when you come out better, like your death taught me how to live, you come out better. The next time you come against a situation that is like, wow, this is challenging. It's like, I know I come out better because that's who I have become. So going through frictions, I mean, athletes are going through discomfort all the time and muscle pain to grow and to become, the athlete that they are. It's a law of nature to not be comfortable.
B, I just wanted to react to the comment you made about resistance breeds creativity, and I don't disagree with it. I think there are many parents of creativity, but the one thing I just wanted to sort of put in the room is, when you have a culture that celebrates immortality, and I, you think of the Mexican culture as like the quintessential example of that, where they have a festival to the dead, and they revere the deceased, and they cook their favorite meals, and they have the shrines and the altars, and they have these conversations, and it's very much kind of brought into the narrative of the community and of the culture, and it's super creative. I mean, like, the costumes and the decor and the everything that goes with it. And I'd love to get your reaction to that, because I think when and also the sort of the Buddhist concept of like, don't resist death, like celebrate death, spend time contemplating death, and see it for what it is, as just a kind of a passing, and like, it's got nothing to do with finality. How do you square that with this notion that you have to have sort of resistance and difficulty in order to kind of appreciate or see what you need to see, or be creative, or like whatever it is, how do you square those two sides of it's the same coin, it's just two different sides. One is a kind of a fearful notion of, how do I prolong this, and the other one is like, no, how do we celebrate the finite nature of this?
I think it relates to the context. What I said is I talked about the Western world, how we've been conditioned to sort of think that this 3D consensus reality is all there is. And within that concept, we're really scared to die, because if this is all there is, then maybe there's heaven or hell. But other cultures, and you mentioned Buddhist cultures and Mexican cultures, they live in, we are all one. And this is just one phase. This is just one expression of who we are in parallel universes, or in before afterlife, or whatever that is. And in the wholeness of who we are as souls, we have an extreme experience in this body, and the beautiful opportunity to be in this body on this incredible planet at this time. And I think the whole upbringing in a system in Mexico, for example, where souls and spirits and the oneness of who we are in spirit, rather than just this body that has everything attached to it. The moment we materialize our world, I mean, in the first podcast, I talked about that woman in Afghanistan who asked me to close my eyes. That difference, like, I was raised in, like, this is all there is. This is the consensual reality. How much did I give consent to this? So maybe it's consensual reality. Certain things I accept, other things I don't accept. But this consensus reality, if we've been trained that this is all there is, I need to start, then the awareness becomes like, oh, maybe there is more. People who are raised in more holistic cultures of that we are souls that have a bodily experience on this planet, not this body has a soul experience, but the other way around. They don't have that kind of friction because they were never cut off from the wholeness. But if you're conditioned and colonized a certain way, you have to get through that friction to become into the awareness, like, oh my God, this is, what was I taught? This is not who I feel I am. And so when you start feeling that and becoming aware of the constructs that we were trained in, you start seeing how death in this culture can become an awareness moment. Like the moment my father dies, it became an awareness moment. It's like, oh, fuck. That's not all there is. There's way more. And did my father die? Yes, his physical thing, his body disappeared, but my father is always with me. Immortality is where you live a life in such way that you continue on in thought, and because you close your eyes, we are all one. So my father is not separated from me. But it takes a lot of decolonizing and experiences bumping up to that friction, the confrontation with, like, oh, that's not how that works. People die also young, and people die, and what then happens? So I think it's what I said about the friction is very much in the Western world, the things that we have to unlearn to become whole again as souls, as seeing this temporary expression of who we are for what it is. And then we can honor it as like, oh my God, we have this extremely beautiful experience of having this, I can feel, I can smell, I can see, like having this incredible experience right now on this incredible planet. Maybe if we start seeing that, we can start honoring it again. Because we're not honoring it now because we're so wrapped up in our own, like, oh, we need to.
Well, yeah, I think the for me, one of the most visible, tangible evidence of being wrapped up in our own world is our materialism. So, we buy stuff and we build stuff and we in an effort to, I don't know, almost as like a shrine to our perceived immortality, and then we get freaked out when, like, somebody gets cancer and suddenly it all comes crumbling down. And so I'm just curious about, because I haven't really kind of thought about it too much, but I'm curious about, when you use a word like cancer, that it's obviously, I mean, you're being provocative, and maybe you by design, or maybe that's like really what you believe, but I think the materiality that we embark on it's like a plague. I mean, it literally is like a disease that just consumes, and it's, and we actually had a really interesting conversation. I think it was the last episode, Al, where we were saying it's not so much the fact that you have the house, the big house, or the fancy car, or the whatever it is, the the partner who looks like they've stepped off a catwalk or out of a soap. But it's your attachment to those things that causes the suffering. And so it so I guess the message for the listener might be, hey, like, don't stress. You can still have all the material things you want. Just like, don't become attached to who you think that makes you out to be, number one. And number two is, if you understand that we are all one, and birth and death are not what you think they are. They're illusions. Then you can transcend the Western cancerous mindset that, I'm here for a short time and I need to accumulate everything I can because that says everything about me.
But that what you just said, Billows, is why do we consume stuff? Like, we live in a capitalistic world that needs consumers, right? That's a principle. Who are the best consumers? Who are the people that buy most? And why do you buy? If you're truly happy, like truly happy, and truly understand that this is just a temporary, how much do you buy?
You don't buy stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's the whole point. And so, yes, you can boost your ego with, big cars and all that stuff, but it goes deeper down. Like, why did you buy it in the first place? And I think we touched on that in the last podcast as well. A capitalistic system trains people, conditions people to be unhappy and unhealthy because that makes for the best customers. Everything that you buy is in an effort to, buy happiness, because we don't know what happiness is. If we get true happy, if we're about to become true happy, we get really scared because we don't know how to do that. So we gravitate to what we know, what's familiar. We start buying again because that's what I know. And we perpetuate the cycle because we haven't addressed our own mortality. And talking about cancer is a beautiful awakener. How many people do you know that have survived cancer and then say, now I value life? Why didn't they value life before? I had a very young wake-up call because my father died of cancer. But that wake-up call is, I treasure that every day of my life because I was lucky that I got that confrontation with life that early in life. Because it made me wonder, and it made me question every narrative that's around us. And so cancer, I think, is a beautiful wake-up call. All those people that I survived cancer, now I value life. Is like interesting. That's apparently what it takes in this construct where we trained a certain way. You need to have a confrontation with life. This is what makes my life with the Alinkers so beautiful. I'm meeting people that have all disabilities. They're the best people that you can ever meet because they have been confronted with life and like, fuck, this world doesn't work for me anymore. Who am I? Now, as a disabled person, I might have a body that works differently, but I'm not disabled. Yet I become disabled. I am disabled by society because they are uncomfortable with death and their own mortality. Disability is not the problem. It's just the body that we have. Again, the material part of it. But we've been trained by ableism, racism, and sexism to judge on the exterior characteristics only. But if I close my eyes, it doesn't matter. We have a human experience and an expansive experience the moment you stop judging on the things that you see. And we do judge what we see. When I see you, I see two white guys, for example. We discriminate because that's how survival works. We have to discriminate. Can it eat us? Can I eat it? Simple, right? The discrimination is not the problem. The thoughts that we attach to it, the conditioned thoughts that we attach to it. It's like, white guy, therefore I can not trust him or whatever. That's a thought that I attach to the discrimination. I see a white guy. That is the problem. The attachments, what you said, the attachments are always the problem. That make us suffer. I can be really cold at this moment. I'm just cold. Can I just be present to the cold? Yes, I can. If I add thoughts of like, oh my God, I wish I had a coat with me. I wish I was at the fire. Now I'm suffering. I'm not suffering from the cold. I'm suffering from the thoughts that I put on being cold. We're always suffering from our thoughts, not from the disease, not from the disability, not from cancer. We're not suffering from that. We're suffering from the thoughts, and the thoughts are conditioned behavior.
I I don't disagree with anything you're both saying. However, I also have a slightly contrarian view. And it is that in some ways, I think we can end up being in danger of setting up the idea that there is a perfect way. There's a way of being, and there's a way of existing that you can be totally happy, or that, like, there's not valuing life and there's valuing life, and yet, like, we're all suffering from the same disease, if you will. Like, we're all suffering from being human, and being human, to my mind, in one sense, is the most innocent and ignorant thing that we can possibly be, because we're all ignorant to our blind spots. Like, we're just totally ignorant, not stupid, but ignorant, and there's innocence in that. And so, yes, someone who gets a cancer diagnosis and lives through it, and suddenly they're seeing life in a totally new way, and it looks like they value life on a wholly, that they've got a higher value on life, and maybe that's true, but it's only true because a veil has been lifted. And in one sense, like, I guess the question I almost have is, like, what agency really does someone have before an awakening? Like, to a degree, it's kind of like you become awakened at the point you become awakened. Like, in one sense, you were so blessed, on one hand, to lose your father at the age of 8, because it was an awakening, and a whole veil was lifted for you at such a young age. And then, of course, on the other hand, well, I don't know, but it's like, but you lost your father at the age of 8. And so you go, damn, like, what
Devastating,
a
obviously.
devastating moment.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting to kind of look at it and go, yeah, like, everything is true. And, but I'm curious really as to, is there a way through that? Or is this just all part of, that's the nature of the beast. We're all caterpillars. We're all caterpillars, and at some point, and we're the butterfly, and we're the pulp in the chrysalis, and wherever you may be, that's exactly where you are. And yet, like, the possibility is that there's something, who knows what you'll see next. Now, anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but it's just, I think I'm becoming more tuned in, at least trying to be, which is to the idea that there's a right way and that there's a wrong way, versus there's just, this is the nature of how life unfolds. This is it.
But this is the thing. I think the veil that you talked about. Do people in Mexico have that same veil?
Yeah.
Because they're brought up in. No, they don't.
Well, so I'm sorry, I actually think they probably do, and yet they celebrate death. So they celebrate death.
Yes.
But I'd love, I would love to do a poll of Mexicans and go, hey, you guys celebrate death. And at the same time, like, does that mean that they're all fully living? They're all fully
But
living.
celebrating death doesn't mean that you can't grieve.
Oh, no, I know, but I guess I was coming at it from a different angle, which was because there was something you said before, B, which was that like the fear of death is a cancer of our society because it's the thing that stops people truly living. And so I guess my question is, so the Mexicans celebrate death. Does that mean Mexicans as a nation live more fully than Irish people, of which I am one?
I think in the celebration of death, you accept that life is a in and out and cyclical process, and you might aim for happiness and accept that some days you're not happy because they're connected. You can't be happy if you're not unhappy. So I think celebrating death is something accepting the cyclical nature of life, that you go in and out, that you go. It's not either or. That's a very Western concept to just be in the either or. The state of comfort is death. The state of happiness doesn't exist. It's cyclical, and I think in non-Western cultures, they are more in acceptance or awareness of the cyclical nature of life, regenerative processes. Things do die, and then new life begins. And I think it's the acceptance of death doesn't make that you can't grieve. Grief is real. In this life, we have a bodily experience of what's surrounding us. I mean, I'm grieving when I see, stuff happening, knowing that we live in that there's different things happening, that this is just one expression, but there's pain in this one expression. There's grief in this one expression. And I think the moment we separated ourselves from nature in our Western construct, we lost that cyclical acceptance. We lost that cyclical, which death is part of. Death is like, if you don't accept composting, death and composting, you don't you don't generate new life. AI is a beautiful example of how we just regurgitate the past and don't let things die and then really create something new. AI is just a repetition of the past, and it's boring as hell. Because we do not accept death. We avoid death.
So you're saying we see it as a permanent thing as opposed to a cyclical thing?
Yes. And
Okay.
nothing is permanent. Happiness is not, life is not, death is not, like nothing. It's cyclical. And if we don't accept the cyclical nature of things, we avoid life and death and happiness and all the rest of it.
It is funny though, El, like just a quick comment on being Irish. Like, in the Catholic side of the Irish culture, I mean, the wake, when somebody pops their clogs, the fact that this person is sort of put out on the kitchen table for X number of days, and there's copious amounts of drinking and storytelling, like that seems to me like a celebration. The traditional Irish wake is not a morbid affair, I don't think. I'm sure people are devastated by loss, but there's a lot of drink and
Well,
sort of
like the Irish
involved. And I don't know. I'm just curious on your take on that, because that's like a
yeah, no, it's the most
that's
Irish
a
thing in the world, which is this: we are great at celebrating someone else's death, and we are frightened as fuck of dying ourselves. So it's like if someone else dies, and like, you know, the running joke is, if you are an Irish person abroad and you ring home, like, as sure as night follows day, your parents, one of their stock things that they will have to tell you about on every call home is, do you know who's died? And of course, I'm in Manchester going, funnily enough, I have no idea who's died, but I know you're going to tell me. And you find out who's died, and death, of course, it is such a part of the fabric of Irish society, like death and funerals and wakes and community around all of that. So yeah, like but the celebration of someone's passing, or the celebration of their life, to my mind, bears no relationship to the acceptance of your own mortality. Like, none. That's why I'm like, I just don't correlate celebrating death as a correlating factor of accepting our mortality. And I think, for me, and like, I love these conversations just because it kind of triggers new thoughts and new moments where you're like, oh, is that an insight? Because so I'll just finish this out, because I have a real deep curiosity in this conversation, because the acceptance is that it's all cyclical, and that is a fact. What is a fact is that it is all cyclical, because that you just see the evidence everywhere in nature, like including our own death. Like, we literally, ashes to ashes, dirt to dirt, frequency to frequency. But my hunch is that this avatar never comes back. This avatar, that's what, or at least this avatar is pretty convinced that this avatar doesn't come back. It dissolves, and another expression of the oneness comes forth. But this avatar knows that it's got a lifespan, because it's in its own little virtual reality. Now, the bit that I get really curious about is, like, I know that's true. That seems very true to me. And the question that I hear in your statement, your provocative statement, is, given the fact that we know that, what is stopping us from living that experience more fully? What are we trying to protect ourselves from? And then that becomes so interesting. Like, it's yeah. So that's what stirs up for me.
That begs the question then, because, like, going back to your nature comment, right? So you know, nature in its beautiful design, its sort of divine choreography and architecture. And it kind of picks up a bit on what B was saying, like, maybe that is part of the perfect design, because you have this spacesuit, and you're so enamored with the spacesuit that you become fearful of losing the spacesuit and everything that you've accumulated around the spacesuit. And maybe that's part of the perfect design, because if you didn't have that tension and that resistance, well, what would we be doing? You know, what would our human experience as spiritual beings, what would that really entail? What would we see? And then, you know, it goes back to that. I always remember that conversation you and I had, Al, when we were walking along that river in that field of, I think it was sheep, just down the road from your house. And you were saying, I can't remember who you were quoting, but you were saying, oh, this person believes that you keep coming back until you've learned what you've meant to learn. And so maybe that's part of the beautiful design is you and who knows, maybe maybe when you've graduated from your dumb Western thinking, you come back as a Yoruba or a Zulu or a Mexican or whatever, and you now have reached the next level until eventually you don't have to come back anymore.
Yeah. And I think that was Rob Begg who, I think on one of these episodes we talked about, gosh, imagine if this is all just like a spiritual sabbatical, that somewhere in some realm all the spiritual beings are sat around and they're having a chat saying, I think I want to try one of these human sabbatical things. And everyone goes, you've got to
Exactly.
give it a go. You got to give it a go. But a bit like, and we were chatting about ayahuasca before, but it's like, you got to give it a go. But like, just so you know, these are the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are once you drop into that, you forget that you're a spiritual being and you're there and, you're there to find out. And I said this to a friend of ours, and it was another guest on here, Rob Begg. I said, oh, Self and Billows were having this chat. And he just like, just like deadpan, just went, well, of course, that's exactly how it works. He said, but you keep coming back until you've realized that you're a spiritual being, truly. And then then we were joking and saying, and then you pop back out, and you're like, holy man, it took me 1,000 lifetimes to figure it out.
Damn.
But you come back more enlightened each time. And like, I love that idea because then you go, oh, okay, yeah, like that's the nature of it. But yet that's also the nature of it, isn't it? The human experience is, who would we be if we truly knew that? And it's like,
But just pop out and think of what this little planet is that we're on. Like in this vast, infinite universe, like infinite solar system, there's this tiny little rock which has all those little creatures on it that have this experience. It's completely nuts. That this is not real. So I think I always look at life like this is just a sort of an experiment gone wrong a little bit. We've been put in this experience, what you said, like as we are all one souls, spirits, frequencies, really, and frequencies create matter. All the particles in my body have been existing and unchanged for billions of years. All the neutrons, muons, whatever, they have not, all those individual particles in me have not changed for billions of years. It's just how they happen to come together in this body is a unique expression. It's quite magical, actually, that this exists, that this little rock floats around in this infinite universe, and we think we're the only ones. It's nearly like is this real? I'm truly wondering always. Like,
it is one of those, if you stop to think about it for too long, it actually just blows your mind and you reach the end.
Well, you think you're in the Truman Show.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we are in the Truman Show. It's like, because it lets me, if you stop to think about it, like I'll often do it on my dog walk. I'll be going back and I'll be looking at the car and just the houses, and I'll be like, what is all of this? Like, what is it? And but it kind of hurts your brain very quickly because you can't answer it. Like, you just can't answer it. But what you said there, B, reminded me of, have you ever read the book by Lynn McTaggart, The Field? It reminds me of that, because that was the first time when I
it
realized,
was,
oh,
yeah,
it
Yeah,
is all a frequency. Like it's all
it is.
energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. And and it's science. It is a scientific fact that we're all made of
It's a
the same thing.
universal
Yeah.
design.
And
Everything in the universe goes back to the same cymatic patterns, to the same frequencies, all of it. Like geometry. It is geometry, and cymatics is geometry. It's all we are frequencies. When you close your eyes, you see a total different frequency. You see a total different reality of what the frequencies create.
so I have a question for you, B, then. So because we like, man, we've gone, I don't know where we've gone. We've gone places today. So you see it really clearly. It strikes me that you see it, you see that fact, a kind of universal fact of existence really clearly. So what do you think that has enabled for you in the way that you live, that the vast majority of people don't get to experience or don't live their life that way?
I think it's the conditioning and what we're attached to, the thoughts, the belief systems that we have. Belief systems are taught, right? And so being attached to something, attachments, thoughts, and attachments cause all the suffering. So the moment you release everything and let go and are willing to lose everything material wise, lose everything that we have, you liberate yourself. The more you buy and have material attachments to, like, I need this big car to be this person because otherwise I feel so, powerless or something. The attachment that I need in the material life, the thoughts, who I am and what I need to be that person, that's where we suffer. Like attachments, I think, is the main, the crucial practice to liberate yourself, to become aware of all the thoughts and the attachments that we have to those thoughts, to the belief systems that we have. Because the belief systems
So
are a
let me ask you
prison,
the question.
right?
So digging into that, and I'm really wanting to kind of draw out your experience here. So would the difference be, but between, that you would say the difference between you and many others that you might observe is that you have less suffering as a result of having less attachments either to your own mortality or anything else, that therefore you essentially have a freer experience of life?
I don't compare, Alan, and I just have my experience, and this works for me in my life, and I'm happier this way by being in this awareness. I don't say that this awareness is for other people the same liberating thing. Like I hope that everybody does. Like I'm very often that people say like, "Oh my God, you've done all this thing. It's so amazing," and da da da. I am just. They compare. Why compare? I have this unique experience, and for me, this works. You have that unique experience, and I hope it works for you. All in a quest to be a happy person. I think that's essentially when we are born. We just want to be happy creatures because if I'm happy, you're happy, we can do better things together. The happiness in the acceptance of everything that we are infrequent. We are like this material stuff is not like the more attached you are to the material stuff and therefore who I am as a person and ego and what I dress like and what my hair looks like, who cares? And I don't compare my life with your life or with anybody's life. Like I just hope that whatever you do in this life in this expression of you that you do what makes you happy. And there is no truth. There's my truth if I see it from this side. But I like what my grandma taught me: borrow somebody's shoes who doesn't look and move like you, and step in their shoe. All of a sudden you got a different perspective. And my truth is like, oh, I thought that worked, but that's clearly not how that looks from their perspective. So, but I constantly, and I've become really comfortable with constantly questioning things and accepting that there is not one truth. There's just my experience. You have your unique experience, and that's therefore we don't need to agree with each other, but we can still respect each other. And that is something that has gone eerie, because we're in this construct of where there is a truth, a way to do it. And, oh, your way, that makes you more happy. For me, that works. That might not work for you, and that's totally fine. And by sharing my truth, your truth, we can learn. It's like, oh, never thought about that. I'm going to try that. Curiosity, not judgment. And not comparing things, because comparing is always linked to a judgment. And I think that curiosity and not being attached to my truth is my God is my God, like not being attached to all those belief constructs that we have taught behavior to create better consumers in this system. So we kill ourselves willingly, and we know what we're doing, and we're not even stopping it because we gravitate to what's familiar. But I think curiosity can liberate you out of like, oh, how does that work? But we've been taught to judge because there's either or, there's wrong and right. That's a very Western white supremacist construct that has sort of spread like a cancer over the whole world, by the way. I don't think there's, except for the people that live deep in the jungle, maybe they still live with their deep indigenous values. But a lot of people that have been exposed to the, colonizing cancer that went over the world have been raised in a colonized way, and therefore their belief systems have been colonized too. So there is no indigenous people and colonizers. Yes, in what we look like I have a white skin, therefore I represent the colonizers. But the cancer goes much deeper, is the whole taught belief system that we've been trained in, that have the attachments to what is right and wrong, apparently. But there isn't right and wrong. And I think that the undoing of all that is the curiosity and not being attached to any thought, any belief system.
B, how do you sort of, one thing you often hear is this concept of legacy. Oh, I need to leave a legacy. And I don't know if that's a very Western thing. It's kind of like whether it's my gene pool or my buildings or my wealth or my, whatever it is. That seems to be a part of the narrative, which is like, okay, I probably have to accept that I'm not going to live forever, but I have to leave a legacy, because then that kind of cements my immortality in some way. Versus, the flip side is, if I just think, like, I come from South Africa, so I'm just thinking of like like the Zulu nation as an example. They revere their ancestors. So like when you die, like burials are a big thing in South Africa amongst all the indigenous folk. Like, but the Zulus in particular, like it's days of mourning, and you're celebrated because you're moving on to become an ancestor, and the ancestors play a very critical role in guiding the living. So like you've graduated. There's not a concept of like leaving a legacy. I don't know. It's in the same way. You're not leaving a legacy in the same way as, I suppose, Western culture thinks about it.
But isn't that immortality, Billows? Like my
Yeah.
father, it was last week. It was 53 years ago that my father died. He's been dead longer than he was alive. The fact that he's still my teacher in life, in death. Doesn't that mean that he made himself immortal by the way he lived? The fact that we revere ancestors in indigenous cultures makes that the ancestors are still there. They're bodily not available anymore, but we make them immortal because we are immortal. And that's why indigenous cultures have the whole ancestors and calling in the spirits, because that's all there. When we cut ourselves off from that, we think we're so important and now we need to leave a legacy. And I have nothing with legacies. Nothing. Like, nothing. I wrote a book, my memoirs, to get it off my chest. What it does and who reads it, whatever. It's out there. It's out for the world to read. And if people don't read it, it's fine. If people don't, like, it's not a legacy as in, oh, I need to make my mark. I need to make my mark, if anything, by being a kind person, by living in a kind way, by touching hearts. And then they will remember me because I've become part of them in kind actions, in kind things that I've said, that I touched, that we touch each other. And if we do that, people remember that. And yeah, so legacy, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very Western concept, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's Western. Like, I've just been listening to you both. I think, to what you said before, B, like, from here, it's some weird Western materialistic concept. And you look at it from here, and it's just the mark you leave on someone's life by who you were. It's just like how you're remembered. And it's just a lens, isn't it? Like, I really took a lot from when you said about, you know, curiosity and comparison is just a terrible idea. Because if we all just accepted not so much our mortality, I think, but just the fact that, like, just be you. Like, it's kind of accepting both your uniqueness and the oneness. It's like you get to be your own expression, and that's all that's really up for grabs, is to express yourself whilst you're here. That's it.
Because we are very unique, isn't it? Like the fact that this little body became to be, and that little body, and that, like, it is mind blowing how the chances that we are here together, being online, having a conversation in those,
Yeah. And
expressions is unbelievably
amazing.
unique. It's amazing.
And revel in that. And then for me, the idea of legacy, I like the idea of legacy, but I like it in the way I like it in the way it was kind of described when you said, oh, if your legacy was one of being people remembering as you being kind, you go, that's a hell
Yeah.
of a legacy. Someone
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
what did you leave
No, I think
behind? I'd be like, oh, I couldn't give a shit what I leave behind. But I like the
Yeah.
idea that if someone goes, you know what? Jesus, like, Al was a good man. That would be a legacy.
I should probably have qualified that. Like, I didn't mean legacy in the way that, indigenous cultures mean it. Like, there is a legacy of, like, what we've spoken about, like revering your ancestors, and I don't know, like land stewardship and all that stuff. I think in the context of the Western legacy, it's all about, like, it's exactly that. It's like my material footprint, and me as the individual, not as part of the
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Like, the idea of leaving a material legacy, I think, is Well, like it's interesting when you look at what nature does to your material legacy anyway. Because, do you ever find it fascinating? I don't know about you guys, but you walk past like maybe an old castle or a stately home that's now decrepit and run down and falling apart, and you're like, well, that didn't stand the test of time. Like, I don't think nothing material stands the test of time. It's just a fact, isn't it?
And yet it's all the same particles that have been around for billions of years.
Yeah, the construction, it's all made of the same stuff, but what it gets molded into is just like Play-Doh. Like, Mother Universe just comes over and kicks it and says, "Oh, I think we'll just start again." Um,
But isn't that the whole cyclical thing? Things are not, nothing is permanent. The particles of which we're built off are permanent and unchanged in billions of years, but the expressions in which it manifests itself based on the frequencies that you put in, that are put in, the expression changes all the time. That's that whole cyclical thing. So don't be attached to life because death is imminent.
okay, B. So, like, with that, like, you kind of started with a doozy, and I think you finished with a doozy. So I'll kind of, I almost I don't want to adulterate that last comment you just made, but I will invite you to create your second "Live into Your Brilliance" bumper sticker for life. So what would be your what's the sequel?
Oh God. Uh, live today.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's the first. Live to die.
Live
I
today.
love it.
The awareness of death. Yes.
this has been fun, B.
One of the best motivators in life for me.
Yeah, yeah. Like, no, I thought your bumper sticker would be something like that because it just, I can't even remember the exact words you just said there at the end, but it just made me smile. But it just made me think of, it's like, oh, just get over it. Like, you're gonna die soon anyway. Just get on with it. Like, and
But there was filtering happening in my head because it's a bumper sticker. I'm driving, and how responsible do I need to be? So I instantly filtered myself because I'm in a car setting. But live to die is like, yeah, I think that's safe enough on a car.
oh, I think so. B, thanks a mil again. I thought we were going to go narrow, but I definitely don't think we went narrow. I think we went big and broad and deep and everywhere, and that's amazing. It was such a cool conversation. Thank you for coming on and sharing your mischief as well. Like, I love your mischievous nature. Also, there's a lot of humor and fun wrapped up into the big provocative statements about the world that we live in, and I love that because you can't beat a bit of levity in life as well. So thank you for honoring us with all of you and all of that. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Billows, any final comment from you?
B, thank you. No, thank you very much. And I thought you would appreciate this quote. I just dug it up. It's Mark Twain, who was obviously the great comic and satirist and an author. And he said, "I do not fear death. I've been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and I did not suffer the slightest inconvenience from it." So there you go. Which I just love.
Yeah.
But no, thank you. This has been
another bumper sticker could be don't take yourself too serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you for another wonderful session, and I love your mind. I love the way you think. I love how provocative you are in all the right ways. And so this has been wonderful. And and I hope you have a wonderful trip to to the Amazon, and we
Yes.
can't wait to have you back to tell us all about that.
Yes, I'd love to come and share about that, because I think they're deep experiences that question everything that we know
Indeed.
that we've been taught. So yeah,
All right, folks. Well,
wonderful.
that's a wrap for another week.
Thanks so
I'm
much.
going to end with B's bumper sticker. Go forth and live to die. We'll see you next week.